You know, oh, and welcome to the Gump Report. I wasn't going to do a Gump Report this week. I was going to leave it. I actually was going to leave the Gump Report because I don't want to do it all the time. Not that I don't like doing it. I want to have some good pieces on it. Originally, the only thing I could think of that was very interesting was that Rohit Raju had finished his time with Impact Wrestling and he had been spotted on AEW Dark. That was the only thing I thought that was interesting. I know Mustafa Ali asked for his release, but that was eventually going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. Every WWE wrestler talent from NXT that was brought to the main roster eventually can't stand it no more and quits. So I thought it's not really something interesting I want to talk about. I can do it on a Dynamite. I can do it on an Impact Wrestling review if I wanted to talk about roughly about what Raju or maybe Mustafa Ali. And maybe I would say, maybe would you guys like to hear something I think about it? But I really wasn't going to do that. Until this I don't know if I'm going to put an intro on this video. I may just put it up as it is, plain, just the title of Gump Report. Because as it stands right now, this has got to be stated. You take Walter, an NXT UK Austrian wrestler, who is extremely over in the UK, extremely over in ordinary NXT. Even 2.0, he is so over, you cannot hear the people chanting for him. And you, as Bruce Pritchard, who's been given permission to do whatever it takes on let me give it to you like this. I've heard what JD talked about, and I've also heard Just Alex. I even heard this, but Solomon hasn't uploaded anything yet, and neither is the Sleg Daddy. I did see a little bit of Wrestling Inc. podcast, and they were not 100% happy about it. They made kind of a joke out of it. For me personally, this went way over the line. Look, I was born during the time how communism was 100% hated by 80 to 90% of Americans. Okay? Let's make this clear. A heavy amount of Americans did not like communism. A communist, someone who followed Karl Marx or someone who's in this country, it always depended on the person you knew. Because generally people would just be capitalists. Doesn't mean there weren't any in this country, someone who felt like they were a communist or who followed Karl Marx. And you know who Karl Marx is. If you don't, check for yourself what he said. I'm not going to explain here. But that's how it was as I was a kid. Now, I never hated anybody who followed like Karl Marx or communism. They're still a person. It's not their fault, just like Americans, it's not our fault. Our economies and our governments are run the way they are. For good or for ill, this is what you get. But we're not talking about American capitalism, and we're not talking about anything of Russian or Soviet communism. There's a total stark difference between those two and the the Aryan Nazi party system that happened in the 40s, where they truly believe that they were the super race. You can check historical records for yourself. That was stated. They believed they were super race, that every other race was inferior to them, and they were sent by God to conquer all. Guys, during the 80s, we had enemies of America in pro wrestling. Nikolai Volkov was an enemy to Sergeant Slaughter and anyone else. You had the Iron Sheik, who was considered an enemy. At one point during the 90s, around the time of Desert Shield, he was dealing with a storyline with Sergeant Slaughter, who became a sympathizer. There is a stark difference. I'm sorry. We had a war in Saudi Arabia. Well, not Saudi Arabia, but in the Middle East. But those people there were never mentioned as extreme terrorists all the time. They weren't. They weren't. Even if we did say they were very violent and cruel, particularly when it came to Saddam Hussein. Yes, there was no some Bin Laden at the time. Osama bin Laden, I just remembered his name. He was many, many years later, in the mid 2000s, where how nasty that was when the World Trade came down. Yes, that is when, if they did that bit, in which they did with one wrestler back in 2005, when the madness of what happened in September 11th, which I lived through, I was here. I could see the plume of smoke coming from Manhattan, from the area I live. You can barely see it, but it came up. You could see it. I am telling you, when that bit happened, UPN demanded that WWE remove the wrestler and the bit from their show, or they would have taken them off television. That is what happened. That's how dramatic it was. Now here, you have Walter at the end of NXT 2.0 saying, after he had supposedly good match with Robert Strom, you weren't beaten by Walter. You were beaten by Groover Stark. Now, I'm sure you already heard who Groover Stark is. He's a U-boat commander from the 1940s who hunted down and destroyed destroyers, destroyed passenger ships, and destroyed also cargo ships. And remember, destroyers had soldiers on it. Passenger ships had passengers on it. And soldiers, as well as cargo ships who had passengers or soldiers. He helped to hunt those suckers down and sink them. People died. Dead. And understand this. Currently where I go for physical therapy, I have an actual German chiropractor. He's a nice guy. He is. Highly intelligent, nice guy. But he would never want to think much about how the Nazi system worked and the Reich. Not the alt-right, the Reich. Actually, we had talked about it. He's a historical buff. I like a little bit of history. And we have talked about it. But he makes it very clear how modern Germans think about what happened back then. The SS, which was their secret police, it was considered horrid back then for anyone who was born at that time, who was living during that time. They had no choice to do what Adolf Hitler had come up with. So, when it comes down to it, that was a horrid time when it comes to the Nazis. I personally have met Jews in my life. You may not want to hear this. You think Jews are nothing but garbage. It counts on which Jews we're talking about. You got the Jews that are born in this country. Got the Jews that are born in this country who have been here for more than a century. In some cases, not all of them, because I've met really good Jews and I've met some that are just dicks. It always counts. Because I met them during the time when I worked in 2 nursing homes. So I've met different types of Jews. You got Jews that are born in this country who are very good, honest people. You got some who run businesses and good, honest people. And then you got the other half that are basically dicks who think they're better than most to almost anybody. But you gotta understand the difference between Jews that are born in this country and Jews that are born from those people who came from the old country. I've met them. I've seen the tattoos on their wrists. And they have told me how bad it was seeing relatives go into a room and never come back. I remember that as a kid. Now, and you're all going to say, dude, what does this have to do with wrestling? Simple. Wrestling has mirrored in some form or fashion when it comes to real life. Like if there's going to be an enemy of the United States, they always, some cases, mirror what is going on. Like what happened with sergeants, what happened during the time of the 80s with the Soviet Union versus the United States, when Nikolai Volkov, who was an actual former Soviet Union citizen, was in wrestling, dealing with it, and he went up against Sergeant Slaughter. Sometimes he won, sometimes Sarge won. Eventually he became a good guy and everyone loved him. That was around the time when the Soviet Union collapsed. Then when Desert Shield happened, when we had the Iron Sheik again, then we had the Sergeant Slaughter who turned sides, and they had their feud right there in story. It was about current events in some current sensual situations. In the late 2000s, there is no real major enemy until Osama bin Laden, as well as that situation with that caused them big trouble when they tried to create, and this WWE tried to create a character that mirrored what was going on after what happened with September 11th. And UPN demanded that wrestler be removed from television, and he got fired. And the bit was dropped instantly. Well, you should reverse that. The bit was dropped instantly, and the wrestler was fired. Gone. And they had never had anyone that even came close to a Sergeant Slaughter dealing with Nikolai Volkov or the Iron Sheik. The only thing they've done is Indian wrestlers who have always been an enemy of the United States, or European wrestler has been an enemy of the United States. That's it. Sometimes a Spanish wrestler, but nothing serious. Vince allowed Bruce to have control of NXT. Bruce came up with an idea. Maybe Vince gave him an inspiration of it, because honestly, I know when it comes to JD, he said this is all Bruce's fault. But let's be honest, Bruce is not as old as Vince. So I believe Vince gave an idea to Bruce, and he ran with it and created a situation with Gruger Stark for a Walter. And understand, and I know people are going to say, dude, calm down, this is not bad. Yes, it is. They bought the rights. Well, they're trying to buy the rights of Gruger Stark's name. Let me repeat that again. United States does allow for patents or copyright of words, names, land, items, you name it, it can be copyrighted. And in this situation, Vince, in his decision, because he made the decision to allow it to happen, someone made a question: can we copyright the name Gruger Stark, a former U-boat commander of the 1940s? Because the spelling of his name, there's actually, if you go on Google, there are two Gruger Starks. One is spelled differently. The first one is a film actor who was born around the same time as my mother. And then the spelling they use is for the U-boat commander. There is a difference between the spelling of a film actor who is German compared to a U-boat captain or commander of the 1940s. There is a difference in spelling of name. And they're not using the name spelling of the film actor from Germany. So don't get it twisted. They knew exactly what they're doing. They chose that name, the right spelling for that name. And if he isn't a sympathizer in the storyline, he'll be the grandson of him. Now, what does this mean for WWE? Will WWE go under? And I know there's going to be someone's going to say, oh, they're done. They're finished. No, they're not. Vince will not let that happen. USA, if they get... You see I'm getting angry? I almost choked. What's going to happen is this. Like what happened in 2005. The network will get a huge outcry. So bad. And along with the fans. Fans of WWE will reach out to the network USA. They will scream at them, hey, this is offensive. Get it off my TV. Eventually, USA will go to Vince, counting on how long this lasts. It could cost a few days to a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Counting if Vince doesn't back off from this, we'll be told, remove it now, or you lose your show. And it'll be done. And you know who's going to suffer from this? Guess what? It won't be Bruce. It won't be Kevin Dunn. It will not be Bruce Pritchard. It will not be John Laurinaitis. It will not be whatever writers are being forced with this. It will be Walter, who just recently moved into this country, leaving UK because he didn't want to leave the UK. He wanted to stay in the UK. He just came to this country. And Vince, Bruce, they screwed him. It doesn't make a difference if Vince inspired Bruce to come up with the storyline or Vince directly came up with it. Walter's done. What's going to happen is this. He's going to be released no matter what. The question is going to be, how badly is he going to be treated before the release? Everyone's angry that his name was changed anyway because they loved Walter as Walter. But Gruger Starks, a U-boat Nazi commander, the name from him stuck onto a wrestler, he's screwed no matter what. They're gonna say he's dead on the no. What I'm sure Just Alex is gonna say, I'm sure JD's gonna say, or Solid Monster, they're insulted. They're gonna say the moment he moves to the main roster, he's screwed. Wrong. They don't understand what's gonna happen to Walter now. JD thinks he's done. He doesn't even know how bad it's gonna be for him. He's going to be fired. Period. The guy just moved into this country. Probably got a visa just like Jonah. There you go. When it came to Jonah, he just moved in. He moved to the country. He got a visa from the WWE. The minute they got rid of him, he had no more visa. He had to go home. What do you think is going to happen to Walter? Because the only way he can work in this country is through a visa. And the programs they have can be covered if you're working for a company. You can get your visa for your company. It's only a matter of time before the WWE is going to release his ass, counting if it's not going to be demanded immediately by USA. So Walter, who just left his country within the last couple, probably not even 2 months, maybe a month and a half, could lose his job instantly, and then he will lose his damn visa to go with it, and he's going to be screwed. This is how bad it's going to be for him. He may have to go back to Austria or Germany, wherever he's been living. He basically gave up everything to come to this country. I think he gave up his job. He had another job next to doing wrestling. He gave up that job to come to the United States. He just lost his damn job. He may lose this job, which eventually he's going to lose it. Just hope he gets some money beforehand. But the point is, if he's only barely been here less than a month or two, and this situation happens, and they demand him to give up not only the storyline, but to be fired, what do you think? What do you think? That boy is fucked no matter what. It just counts on how much time he's got before he's going to be deported back to the country he came from, because he's not going to be allowed to keep his damn visa. And that's not what JD's thought about. That's not what Just Alex is going to think about. I'm sure the Slag Daddy's not going to think about that. I'm sure the Wrestling Inc. podcast, I saw some of it. The parts where they were talking about him, they weren't talking about that. He's going to lose his job. And he'll lose his damn visa like Jonah did. And the guy just gave up everything to come to this country, and he's going to lose it. Why do these guys who are wrestling podcasters don't realize what's going on? How come I do? A stupid little YouTube channel like mine realize this is garbage. Now, what does this mean for the rest of the situation? Vince don't give a damn until he's in trouble, like he was with Hassan, because I can't remember the name of the wrestler, but I believe his name was Hassan, and he, back in 2005, when he did his bit, when it came to the Middle East, they dropped that because UPN demanded it, and he lost his job. When you look at Mustafa Ali, from what the reports were, Mustafa Ali was going to be stuck with this type of situation, but he didn't want nothing to do with it. So he went home, made his request to be released, and the WWE is eventually going to release him. Unlike Toni Storm, who didn't ask for release, she just left. She took her ass home, and they just released her. And that was a wise thing for her. So when it comes down to this situation, this is what's going to happen, I believe. Walter, if he's not reverted back, he's going to stick with this because he had no choice. The guy abandoned everything in his country, either of Austria or Germany, to come here. He had no choice but to do that little bit with Gruger. I am not Walter, I'm Gruger. He had no choice. He just moved here. So he had to do it. And eventually, either because they demanded to get rid of it and to get rid of the part, or they're just going to demand him to be removed and the part, he's done. WWE will get a smack on the wrist by USA and a large scream at the fans, and that'll be it. The only way they're going to learn a lesson, and this is what you guys are not going to understand, the WWE is not going out of business in 6 months. They're not gone. They're not going. None of it. They're going to still be available. They're going to still be streaming. They're going to still be making money. Vince is just going to do what it needed to shut the people that are unhappy up. And we'll still be in the same place. The only way things will happen is that the remaining wrestlers and the production staff walks out and does not work. Then Vince will learn a lesson. This is what just Alex doesn't understand. JD does understand, and I'm sure Solomon may understand. What makes the company work are the wrestlers and the production people. They walk out, and no matter what Vince does, without his wrestlers, he can always, in emergency, pull everyone up from the Performance Center or NXT and get it done. Even the ones that are in the back still waiting, he just got to pull them up if they're not going to walk out. The general wrestlers that are on TV all the time, from NXT 2.0, SmackDown, and Raw, or even a few that are working on main event, if they all walk out, there's still a few people that are left in the company that he can just call up. But if his production staff leaves, the people run the lighting, the cameras, run the audio, run the video, do the editing. If they're all done, the ones who put in the graphic information and the compositing information for the computer generated graphics, if they walk out, he's dead. Dead. I say that now. He's dead. But it won't happen because they're not going to leave because they're too scared to do it. They're the ones who make the company work. If every wrestler walks out that is only shown on TV, he'll always replace them. But if the production staff leaves, along with those wrestlers in solidarity, saying, Vince, fuck you, this went too far, you offended our fans, you offended us, gone. There you go. But that won't happen. What's going to happen is Vince is going to get a smack on the wrist by USA if it gets that bad. He'll get rid of the gimmick. He'll get rid of Walter Kruger Stark. He'll get rid of him. And then he'll take some heat, which he don't even care about. And that'll be the end of it. The true way for him to learn a lesson is for the production staff, along with every writer, every person who puts the ring together, all the people who control the lightings in the back, control the cameras in the back, control the computer positing in the back, puts in the audio, making sure everyone is seen and the lightings work. They all walk out. Vince is dead. You have no way to make anything work without them. That's it. But that's me. No more words. Now, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if I'm going to try and do NWA Power. I'm going to see if I can. See if I can do it right now. Because I might not need to go anywhere today. So I'm going to see if I can do Power before Dynamite. So you have it. I don't know if it's going to be done before the end of the afternoon. Before Dynamite or not. If I can. But I'm hoping to do it. Peace.